I'm going to have far too many slides, so excuse the gabble. But I thought I'd use my time today just to talk a little bit about a few common themes that I picked up over the years, working in a variety of different contexts, both in working in strategic consultancy, but also working in placemaking projects, and also working in lifestyles-focused communications projects. And sustainable lifestyles, we hear talk about it all the time, don't we? And I can't help thinking that perhaps, actually, it's a little bit like teenage sex. Everyone says they're doing it these days, and you suspect, actually, they're not. And even if they are, they're probably not doing it properly. So I think that this whole agenda really boils down to one question, and that's a big one. We're talking about how shall we live? And in doing this, I feel that we really need to tackle the whole shebang. It's about designing environments and buildings and places and organisations and products and services which make it easier and more attractive to live sustainably. Because unless we do that, we're not going to address all those big challenges that we all know, reading any newspaper these days, we're facing. So I've got 7 little lessons, by no means comprehensive, but I do think that these, for me, certainly are common themes. And the first one sounds so obvious, but I think when addressing this agenda, whatever angle we're addressing it from, we do need to keep bringing this question back to things that people care about anyway. Most of us aren't scientists. Most of us actually are worrying about how to pay the mortgage, how to get the kids to school on time. And so talking about sustainability or even climate change for most people goes in one ear and out the next. So this is just one example of working with communities, thinking about how we create places that would encourage and enable them to live more sustainably. My second point is about providing opportunities for personal experience. So this is quite a personal one for me. This is me aged about 7, wearing some tragic second-hand clothing. Cut the fringe myself. In the wood where I grew up, I was very fortunate. I grew up in a 62-acre woodland. Of course, we can't all do that. But I do think that for me, it wasn't the parents wagging the fingers with the statistics about recycling, although there was that. It was that hands-on engagement that embedded in me a personal attachment to and engagement with these issues that, despite my interest in many other things, mean that quite a few years later, this is where I'm choosing to work. And a mantra that my team use, which I'm sure we borrowed from someone, is tell me I forget, show me, maybe some pictures help, I hopefully remember, but involve me, I understand. And I think that that involvement and that creating opportunities and triggers for personal engagement, whatever perspective you come from in this agenda, is crucial. That hands-on experience is a project I worked on some years ago, the Earth Centre up in Yorkshire, where on a 400-acre site we provided everyone from school children to business leaders hands-on experiences to trigger this engagement with the issues. And more recently, this is a BBC series that I worked on called Outrageous Wasters, where we worked with probably some of Britain's most wasteful families, again, going through a televisual experience of change and engaging with these issues. This was a family who said they couldn't give a toss about recycling. So one day we took all the waste that they produced in a month and dispersed it in and around a rather photogenic lake in the farm that we were staying on with them, and they were disgusted. And I pointed out that actually slightly different hole in a natural environment than the one they were usually putting their waste in, but that they told me yesterday they didn't give a shit. And we spent the day fishing this out and then having a little lesson in what could be recycled. And that family still, a few years on, write and tell me all the things that they do give a shit about now. And Wilderness Wood, which was mentioned just now, this is the wood actually where I grew up. I've moved back there, and we now run lots and lots of different programs of engagement for people of all ages. Again, it's usually just a day, but it's an opportunity to try something a little bit different as a trigger to taking on the slightly bigger, perhaps more life-changing issues. The Turn to 30 campaign, I think, for me, really illustrated the importance of harnessing the power of doing something. For those who don't know, this was a campaign which really was encouraging people to wash at lower temperatures. Simply one action, turn to 30. Simple headline. If everyone in the UK does this, we save enough energy each year to power 500,000 homes. And it went from about 2% of the British population washing at 30 degrees to I think it's about 27, 28% now. Very, very simple campaign, but for me, what was exciting about it, as someone helping to front, is that it paved the way for a much, much bigger conversation, because all of a sudden, you were talking to people about something they could do every day. It was going to save them money. It might make their clothes last a bit longer, and everyone else they could see around them was doing it, and it was cross-platform, so we were building a community of people doing that, and then they were saying, what can I do next? And I just thought that that moves beyond that sort of guilt paralysis. And a fourth, again, very obvious lesson, I think, is this importance of recognising diversity. As I don't like the word consumers so much, I prefer to think of myself as a citizen, but no doubt I do consume. We're not all the same, and I think that when we're engaging this agenda, it's about how do we personalise this and recognise that dictatorial diets of any kind, even if we need a common framework, aren't going to work. Different people are inspired by different things, and there's lots of different ways of cutting this pie, but certainly in the UK, the evidence seems to suggest that the majority of us actually are motivated by what other people think about us, what other people are doing, external recognition. That's what underpins our consumer society. So rather than talking to people like us about the issues we think we all care about, which I think is what most of us green campaigners have got stuck on, we're not pioneers. We need to recognise that the majority of people actually in Britain, if they're going to put PVs on their house, they're going to do it because the neighbours can see, even if it's on the north-facing side of the house. The fifth in my 7 lessons is the importance of actually raising people's sights. And I come across this time and time again, particularly with consultancy clients, is that there aren't many examples out there, they think, of this being done well. And that's one of the reasons that we work in property now. It's actually about drawing together and recognising all the great things out there already. And so I'm going to speed up. And I think it's about making sustainable behaviour easy and attractive, showing people, steering people towards the way that they can actually enhance their quality of life, as well as perhaps thinking about the ozone layer or carbon. And finally, and this is where I think that perhaps that's why I struggled with the A or B earlier, is obviously this is both. And unless we provide the right context and support, as well as exhorting people to change their own personal behaviour, there is actually only so much individuals can do as consumers. UK cyclists are 10 times more likely to be killed than Danish cyclists, despite the fact that the Danes cycle far more than we do. And that, of course, isn't because Danes are genetically better cyclists than us. It's because they invest in the infrastructure. On the left, that's a very British piece of road art, I think. And on the right is the scene outside Copenhagen train station. Thank you.